How's it going, guys? Thanks for stopping by the channel. So a few weeks ago I picked up my Omega Seamaster Professional, and I've worn it for, on the wrist pretty much non-stop for the last few weeks. So now it's time to come back, and I wanted to do an initial unboxing of this Omega, and then also a full review and my impressions of this amazing luxury timepiece. But before I start, customary wristwatch check. I'm wearing a Breitling Aerospace, which, funny enough, I acquired a few days after getting the Omega, and I traded this from a local watch enthusiast. But yeah, my collection is starting to escalate really quickly. And of course, I am wearing the white gloves, so you guys know that I'm serious about this review. Let's get started. Okay, so when you open up the outer box, what you get is this really ornate wood engraved Omega inner box, and then you get some paperwork on the side here. So the first piece of paperwork you're going to receive are the operating instructions in multiple languages. Nothing too fancy, it just tells you how to operate and care for your watch. You will also receive this really nice leather card holder with your international warranty and the pictograms. So the pictogram card, it gives you, using pictures, the different features of this watch. So you have things like, self-winding, cost certification, 300-meter water resistant. They need to update this though. This is actually a 5-year warranty for this watch, not 3 years. And then flipping it over, you have the reference number for this piece, as well as my personal watch number, which you guys don't need to know. And then it lets you know that this is the Omega Caliber 2500. Okay, the next card is, of course, your international warranty, which again just has the reference number, watch number, the place of purchase, which for me I got at the flagship Raffi boutique in Cambridge, and then the date of purchase. So let's check out the inner box. Of course, the inner box houses the watch, and I just want to say that the attention to detail on the wood framing and the metal hardware holding the box is first and top notch. Now, of course, you get the watch on this really nice decorative watch roll here that keeps it really secure. There's some other information, including the hang tag for this watch. And then if you lift up this compartment here, they even provide you this really nice travel pouch, which is very plush and very supple. And I suppose you could just throw your watch in here if you need to take this for servicing, or you just, wanted to carry it around if you're traveling. So that about wraps up the unboxing portion. Now let's get into the full review. All right, the gloves came off for this section of the review. Sorry, it's really hard to hold and operate this watch with white gloves on. But let me go into detail about this watch. I'm going to talk about the positive and negative aspects, as well as the specs and dimensions. And let's start there with the dimensions of this watch, because this maintains the classic Omega Seamaster size of 41.5 millimeters across the case. Flipping to the side, lug to lug, you're looking at 47 millimeters. So really nice compact wingspan with those down-turning lugs. Case thickness comes in just under 13 millimeters, and the lug gap here for this beautiful integrated Omega Seamaster bracelet is 20 millimeters. So I think the proportions for this watch are just spot on. It's super comfortable, and this watch was recently discontinued and replaced by the 25th anniversary model, which has a slightly larger case dimension and thickness, to accommodate their new in-house movement. But I'm in love with the design of this watch. So let's talk about that a little more, because what really drew me in is that this version has a really deeply glossy lacquer blue dial, and there's no wave pattern on this one. It's just a really nice and legible blue dial with contrasting white applied indices and hand stack. And on this version too, they also applied the Omega symbol and logo under the 12 o'clock, which just looks beautiful, and it really pops under certain conditions. And another nice feature about this particular model is that they have a ceramic bezel insert, and I think the color of ceramic just matches really well with the overall dial. And on top of that, you have what Omega calls a liquid metal, which they permanently bond the etchings for the bezel, for the minute indicators along the bezel. Um, they permanently bond that metal to the ceramic so it won't scratch your chip. So you get a lot for the money with this particular model of the Omega Seamaster. So going back to the design of a dial, I appreciate that this one is just a little more understated compared to the new 25th anniversary, because you don't have the wave pattern there. I think the indices and the bezel are just a little more understated, so you can really dress up this watch if you need to. It's just extremely versatile. It also has the classic Omega Seamaster skeletonized hour and minute hand, and aiding in the legibility, I think, is the sapphire crystal, which has an anti-reflective treatment on both the under and top side. And unless I go directly on my studio lights, it almost looks like that crystal disappears. And the contrast, even with the touches of red for like the written Seamaster and the tip of the second hand, really make this watch stand out. And it's really just gorgeous to look at. In addition to that, the applied indices and handset have really nice lume. They actually use a dual lume application, which is really thoughtful because most of the indices and hand stack will luminesce blue, but specifically for the luminous pearl on the bezel and the minute hand, they will actually lume green. And that just helps in low light visibility, give you orientation, especially if you were to, like, if you wanted to, dive with this watch and time your bottom time. You could quickly adjust this, and you would see that in dark conditions, the green would line up here, and then it'd be really easy to track and differentiate between the other markers that luminesce blue. Now, I do want to talk about the first negative aspect about this watch, and that is the bezel action. This bezel is easier to turn than older models, but the detents, especially when you turn it quickly, they almost sound hollow, not as reassuring as I would have thought. Now, if we look a little below closer to the 6 o'clock, you can see the printed text. It says the co-axial chronometer, 300 meters water resistant. Aiding in that 300 meters water resistance, you do have the helium escape valve here near the 10 o'clock position, and it is signed HE for helium. And actually, let's talk about this movement because it mentions the coaxial chronometer. So this is actually the caliber 2500 from Omega. The base of this movement is actually an ETA 2892A2, but they've modified it a fair bit. I mean, they've had to modify it to put the coaxial escapement in it, which just it decreases the friction and extends the power reserve up to 48 hours. And to do that, the beat rate is just a touch slower than your normal 4 hertz movement. It's like a 3.5 hertz movement. But I'll take that if you get a full 2-day power reserve any day of the week. Now, it is in chronometer grade, adjusted in 5 positions. Although I do have to mention, I'm a little disappointed how I leave this watch at night, which is in a watch box, dial up like this. It picks up about 5 seconds a day, which is still within cost specifications, which the tolerances for that are no more than -4 to +6 seconds per day. But I will say anecdotally, if I leave this watch crown down or crown up at night, the accuracy is much better. It's about picking up +2 seconds a day. So I wish it was regulated in every position to that type of level, but just a minor gripe that I have about this watch. Okay, let's talk about finishing quickly. I really enjoy, the different details, the brushing, the polish work on this watch. You can see that if you look at the side of the case, you have some really nice horizontal brushing along the shoulders of the case. And then you have those like classic, almost like teardrop polished bevels near the top of the case. And then the bezel itself kind of has that scalloped pattern, and there's transitions between brush and polish all along the bezel, which is really nice. But the big highlight for me, it's definitely going to be this bracelet. I think This 5-link bracelet has been really improved upon over the years. The integration of the end links into the case is really strong. There's like no jingly jangly wobble to it. It's extremely solid. So, you get some really nice differential brushing along the side of a bracelet, along the tops. And then in these intermittent links here, you do have fine polish accents all along. Another upgrade to the bracelet is with these individual links. They're held in with double-sided screws. So sizing it is a lot easier, I think, and more secure than just having friction pins or pin-in sleeves. That's my preference. And then you get along to the clasp here. So the Omega clasp, nicely brushed and etched in Omega logo. Even the details here, like adding a really fine polished bevel along the side. And then the twin trigger release, these buttons are bigger than they were in the past, and they're polished really well. Opening it up, nicely milled out swing arms here. You will note there is no micro adjustment on the clasp, which is kind of a downer, considering that the new 25th anniversary edition has toolless adjustment where you can push a button and then get incremental 2mm adjustments. Now, in place of that, this clasp does have the more standard dive extension right here, which I will say is nicely milled out. Another small gripe, though, is you really have to be careful when reseating this. You have to make sure that this part of the swing arm clicks in, and then you're pushing it in here in order to close up the clasp. If you don't follow that procedure, the clasp won't close. But once it is closed, it's extremely solid. I'm very happy with it. And then let's look at the case back. You got your standard Seamaster hippocampus, the seahorse, deeply engraved with a nice wave pattern along the side. This holographic mark here near the bottom of that lug there, that's that's done by Omega to deter counterfeiting of this watch. So if your watch doesn't really have this, then you might want to do a little more research before purchasing it, because this stamp here ensures that it is authentic. And here's a wrist shot for you guys. So my wrists are just over 7¼ inch, and this watch just sits really well planted on my wrist, and it's super comfortable. I love this bracelet. Even the clasp, although it doesn't have some of the upgrades, it's very thin. It counterbalances the head of the watch really well. And again, I just think it's extremely versatile. You could really dress this watch up if you need to. You could even throw it on a leather strap and it would look fantastic. But it's a great everyday carry. I think it looks great with jeans and a t-shirt. And then again, it can even be worn more formally if you need to. Okay, so what are my final thoughts here? Well, at the end of the day, this is my first Swiss luxury dive watch that I've purchased, and I'm very pleased with the overall versatility and comfort of this particular model for the Omega Seamaster. The minor gripes I think I've mentioned, but I'll go over them again. Bezel action, it could be a little more refined, a little more satisfying. The clasp could definitely benefit from having that toolless micro adjustment like they do on their current model. And the tolerances, I just wish it was slightly tighter, even though this is one of the cost specifications. I do have other watches that are more accurate. But guys, I'd love to hear your feedback. Which model of Omega Seamaster is your favorite? And do you agree with my assessment? Please let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next video.